small biz, spotlighting the true backbone of the American economy, the true tycoons of business in America, the owners, founders, and CEOs of small businesses. The show's hosts, Austin Peterson and Landon Mance, are registered representatives of Lincoln Financial Advisors Corporation, a broker-dealer, member SIPC, and registered investment advisor. The views expressed by your hosts, Austin and Landon, are not necessarily the views of Lincoln Financial Advisors. Backbone Planning Partners is a marketing name for registered representatives of Lincoln Financial Advisors. Now let's lean in as Austin and Landon connect with this week's Tycoons.
Good afternoon, Tycoons, and welcome to Tycoons of Small Biz. I am Landon Mance. I know that probably threw you off because usually Austin is doing the intro. However, he will not be joining us today. In fact, Karl, I think this is my first time ever solo hosting the show, so it could be a bit of a dumpster fire, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, no, our thoughts and prayers are out there to Austin. He's pretty under the weather at the moment, so hopefully he'll be on the mend here in the next couple days. But nonetheless, really excited for our conversation today. We indeed have a true tycoon, Karl Maier. He is the CEO and the founder of Abunden, and he's going to tell us all about this really cool software that they have rolled out. But in a nutshell, they help internal and external business advisors guide owners and their teams to grow the companies rapidly. So, Karl, really excited to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thank you, Landon. I'm really excited to be here. Sorry that Austin's not feeling well. Hope he does get better real soon. So,
Yep. Appreciate it. Well, Austin and myself and Karl, we had a pre-qualification call a long time ago, earlier this year, I believe it was. So really excited to get an update from Karl on how things are going. But just before we jump into things, Karl, let me just take a second here and just tell the people, in case you're listening to Tycoons for the first time, we are a live radio show that maps over to a podcast, all the major podcast platforms the next business day. We started Cinco de Mayo of last year. So we are somewhere around our 80th-ish episode, and we record every Tuesday, same time, same place, out of Tempe, Arizona. And essentially, Tycoons of Small Biz is a platform typically for small business owners to come on to tell us about them, their families, their upbringing, their stories, and then naturally transition into what their business does, who they serve, what impact they're making, and identify some ways that we can help to prop them up and support them. Austin and I both come from long histories of entrepreneurs, from grandparents to parents to siblings to ourselves. And so we truly believe that small businesses are the backbone of the American economy, hence our firm name, Backbone Planning Partners. So, all right, let me get off my soapbox. Karl, again, really excited to have you here. And just before we get into talking about all the successes you've had in business and talk about what you're doing now, if you would, tell us a little bit about Karl as an individual. Tell us about where you grew up, your family, where you went to school, what Karl likes to do when he's not building these great companies.
very good. I grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio. Both sides of my family were native to Cincinnati, so we'd lived there for a long time, and got to ride my bike to my grandmother's house when I was a little kid, and play sports in the neighborhood, and pretty, middle American type of upbringing. And we actually did have one situation that was pretty memorable for me when I believe I was about 10 years old. We had a chance to go to Disney World, and that was a lot of fun. There's a longer story there, but if we get a chance, maybe we'll come back to that. But when I was 16, the family pulled up stakes and moved to Houston. My father had a chance to take a new job down in the nice warm Texas weather here, and got to see my first hurricane, even before, when we were visiting, before we got to move here. So that was eventful, and I really enjoyed the atmosphere in Houston overall. It's very open, entrepreneurial type of environment. My dad ended up starting a business of his own after we'd been here a few years, which tied back to my grandparent. Both my grandfathers had started a business at various times in their career. And so I went to school here in Houston at Rice University, got my undergraduate degree in economics, went straight through, got my MBA in information systems and entrepreneurship, and then went into the corporate world. So that was a little bit of my kind of growing up background. I do like exercise. I'll ride a stationary bike, or long ago actually used to ride a real bike a lot more, a little more long trips, things like that. Walk the dog in the morning, always a fun thing, but play little video games here and there as well. So, get a chance to do some fun things beyond the family. Got a couple kids, couple step kids. So, the whole family thing as well. So does that give you a little bit of flavor for my background?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, appreciate it.
Okay.
So you moved out to Houston, and your dad was I'm guessing just working for a company, and then he decided he wanted to start up his own thing. What was the business that he started?
So my dad, he came out of college and started selling industrial valves. Back in the day, they actually manufactured them in Ohio. And so he's a sales rep for them, just was a natural, sales person, really outgoing, and ended up traveling all over the world for that company. Eventually, they moved production offshore and then moved corporate up to Chicago. And so it became obvious we were going to move somewhere. If he was going to stay with that company, we were going to Chicago. And he looked around, and Houston was where most of the industrial valves are sold in the US. So he said, well, might as well kind of go to the center of the universe, as it were. And so we came down here, and things were, the economy was just booming at that point. And a few years later, within about 4 years, there was a big oil bust. Those happen, fairly regularly in the oil field. And this was a really, really big one back in the 80s. And there were no more sales jobs. The company he was with went under. And so his choices were, try and find a job doing something else or start his own company. So he used some of his international contacts and started selling.
Cool. Very cool. Did he stayed in that same line of work, the valves?
Yes, he started in that, I guess, when he was like 22, and he's currently 84. And he told me he had 3 sales calls to go out on this week. He's on his own at this point. Just does some independent rep work, but it keeps him busy. So he's been doing it for 62 years now.
That's it, huh? Just 6+ decades, huh?
Right.
Very cool, man. Very cool. I certainly hope that 84 that I'm still doing something, involved in business and seeing clients and keeping the dome sharp, so very cool. All right. So you graduated from college, you got your undergrad degree at Rice, and you did your MBA, cut your teeth in the corporate world for a number of years. And then tell us about your entrepreneurial journey. How did you decide that you were going to start, a company? I know you've been involved in a lot of different startups. I believe you founded a couple companies yourself. So yeah, just talk to us about, maybe the first company. How did that come about, and tell us just, your entrepreneurial background and kind of what's led you up to, the company that we're going to be talking about today, which is Abunden.
Right. Well, I guess I had been out in corporate for 6, 7, 8 years, something about like that. And my dad's company was growing and he really needed some help, particularly on the financial side. And he really he twisted my arm a little bit to, say, hey, come on, join the company here. We need some help, with systems and accounting and all kinds of fun stuff to, keep growing. And so I did. I joined the company, left the corporate world, and I guess I was 91. And I guess we ended up, from the time that I joined the company till 3 years later, we actually were on quite a growth streak. We grew the sales by 5x in those 3 years. So it was, we got a lot of big contracts and had some good fortune there. And so I stayed with the company a couple years longer. My dad was really got to a certain point and he's like, this is as big as I really want to get it. I like it like this. If we move to another level, it really would have been bringing on another layer of management, really been a big transition. And, I was, fairly young, in my 30s, early 30s and mid 30s, whatever by then. And I was like, yeah, we need to keep growing, or I need to find something else. So I went out and did some entrepreneurial things, started a consulting company, and ended up doing some projects with some other companies till 99. Well, .com was in full swing, and I started my first software company at that point. So that was my first big adventure. And that one, as you might guess, with the .com software companies, it did great until it blew up. So we had a second round of funding scheduled to close the month after the .com crashed. So that didn't happen, and we wrapped that company up. But early the next year, started a second one with a partner, and we had more success with that. But eventually, my partner and I had some different visions on, how we price things, where we're going with the company. So I got bought out of that company, and actually my software stayed on the internet for about 15 years. So I was kind of pleased with that, but moved on and took some roles with other companies, helping other companies either as a full-time or as a fractional executive with a number of companies for, on and off for till I guess about 4 years ago, when I started Abunden, which is now my third software company to found.
All right. Perfect. So you were doing the fractional stuff before it was cool, is what you're saying.
But yeah, we didn't really have the name, the fractional name for it back then.
Right.
Okay.
Well, yeah, that's great. That's great context. And hey, by the way, I really appreciate you, sharing your story, which includes some of the successes and the failures that you have had, because we've all been there, we've all done that. Any entrepreneur that has been involved in more than one venture, we'll have a similar story, but not everybody's so open to sharing it. So certainly appreciate that, and that is great context leading into my next question, which is, what is Abunden? What do you guys do? Who do you serve? And tell us about how Abunden came about.
Great. Abunden is fundamentally a software tool, and we've wrapped some training and other services around it to help support and implement that software, of course. But the fundamental business problem that Abunden is addressing is very much the one my dad ran into, 30 years ago. You start a company, you know your product, you know how to sell it, and you hire a couple people, things are going great, and you hire a few more people and fantastic. And all of a sudden you realize that, maybe you've got, who knows, 15, 20, 30 people working for you, and you're still managing things that same way you did when you had 3 or 4 people. And now you're the bottleneck and everybody's coming to you, which is great, but now you're indispensable. And if you get sick, wow, everything stops. And in order to transition from that mode of operating to the stage where you can continue growing, you really have to do things differently. What Abunden tries to do is help build the infrastructure around that entrepreneur so that they can safely hand off some of their roles, some of their duties, so that now the company can continue to grow. You can sell the company more effectively for much higher valuation. All sorts of good things start to happen. So that's really what Abunden's about.
Yeah, cool. I want to let's definitely unpack that in some more detail here in a minute. But tell us who typically who does your client look and feel like? Is it the owner of the business that would engage you, or are they going to be led and guided by an advisor like yourself or somebody like like me? How does someone typically engage with the software?
So there are kind of 2 different paths for engaging, and one is absolutely through an advisor. So that could be exit planner or strategy consultant, business coach, fractional CFO, COO, variety of different titles that are external to the company in an advisory role. And they're saying, these are the tools that you need to bring in to kind of achieve your goals, what we're working towards for you. And they help, explain the value, help implement it, those types of things. The other way is the entrepreneur, the founder of the company, or perhaps somebody internal, a chief operating officer, integrator, somebody within the company says these, yes, these tools make sense. I understand, why we need to bring these into the company. And so, we've got those 2 different approaches to how we start working with a company.
Gotcha. Okay. So I want to talk about all the different aspects of the software. I was poking around on the website, before our discussion today, and I think there's a lot. All the different steps are super valuable, and I want to understand how they are packaged together and ultimately, served up to the client. But let me ask you this: why did you start this company?
Good question. So a few years ago, I was kind of looking back on my career, what had gone well, what hadn't gone so well. And as I looked at the successes, there were 5 different companies that had grown fairly rapidly, at least doubling sales within 2 years. And I looked at, thought about what have I done, each of those companies, what did the companies do? And I kind of came up with a common set of tools that really helped change the behaviors and drive the company forward, help it grow significantly. And I thought back on some advice some IT nerd gave me at one point, which was, if you use the same spreadsheet twice, you need to put it into a database, which of course, a little bit of hyperbole there, but it's like, well, yeah, I am using spreadsheets to do all this. So yeah, maybe putting it onto a software platform makes sense. If it's a SaaS platform, it's more affordable for others to use. So let's do it.
All right. So walk us through what Abunden is actually doing and what are the different elements of the software. Because I know there's, a handful of different services or programs or sections of the software itself. So just kind of give us a brief overview of all those and how they kind of tie together.
So there are 6 different pieces to the Abunden tools. The first piece has to do with, let's get everybody going the same direction. I mean, if you're rowing the boat and we're going 2 different directions, you're going around in circles, right? So let's have a 1-page business plan to summarize, why we're here, where we're going, and how we're going to get there, so that we can tell the whole team, in fairly short order, this is our plan, and they can, get on board, hopefully. Once we've said, okay, this is where we're going, now we need to get everybody, figured out where they fit in. So we've got a drag and drop org chart with several different views. So you can see, okay, this is where I fit in. This is who I report to. These are my duties. These are the decisions I can make. So that really helps, reduce uncertainty and stress in the organization. Now we're ready to make some decisions. So let's have a structured management meeting that lets us identify opportunities and challenges, prioritize those, and have discussions so that we can make decisions as a top-level management team. Once we've made those decisions, well, we need to execute that plan. So that comes down to supervisors. We need to train our supervisors so that they have a method for relating to their people, for delegating, for giving feedback, assessing their team. So that's a one-on-one process that we have in the system. And if you're going to be doing things, having a repeatable business process is very valuable. So we have a system to kind of take inventory of what processes do we have, do they all fit together, and who's responsible or accountable for each of those pieces. So if there's overlaps or gaps, we can find that out pretty quickly. And then the last piece is a lightweight learning management system. It's so easy to make a recording these days and, oh, great, this is how you do steps ABC, fantastic. And then the next time you need it, 2 or 3 months down the line, you're like, where did I put that? Oh, well, I'll just record it again. And the other option is to use the learning management system, store it there. It's easily searchable. Everybody can find it and access it. So those are the 6 pieces.
Okay. So my experience with business plans has been, I develop a new business plan. I usually do it in December, coming up into the new year. I develop a business plan, you get, jazzed, you see this vision for coming into the new year, you're excited, and then you stick it in your drawer, in your desk, and you don't ever see it. So 2021, Karl, was a different year for me. If you see my eyes, I just look right above where my camera is right now on my laptop, and I'm looking right now at my business plan. And so a year ago, in must have, I don't know, December or January, I taped my business plan to the wall, which forced me to look at it. I don't know, I probably look at it 3 to 5 times a week. I'll just glance over at it, and I can tell you, it has made an absolutely incredible difference, because it has been a really successful way of holding myself accountable to achieving the goals that I have, set out for our firm. And it has absolutely been a game changer. And as I come into the last 2 weeks of the year, I can tell you, every single goal that I set, I will hit it plus or minus about 5%. So some of them I'll just, I'll surpass. Some of them I might not quite hit, but I'll be very, very close to achieving all of them. So let's talk about, like, in your opinion, Karl, what is the importance of a business plan, and what constitutes a high quality business plan?
Right. Well, first, your experience is very consistent with my experience. It's, there's 2 values to a business plan from the way I look at it. One is the planning process. It's the process of thinking about what I need to do for, well, ultimately, wait, if I want to grow and sell the company or pass it to the kids or whatever I want to do, that's my long-term goal. So how am I going to get there? Well, you start breaking it down. Well, if that's 7 years from now, I want to sell it, what do I need to do in 3 or 4 years to be ready to reach that goal? What do I have to do in 1 year? So that's all part of our one-page business plan. But we don't want to stop there. Just like you're posting it on the wall, we want to break that down into quarterly goals. And then in our weekly management meeting, we're checking in every week. How are we doing on those quarterly goals? Are we on track? If we're on track, great. If not, let's talk about that. What do we need to do to adjust? And then we can drive that all the way down into individual goals in our one-on-one tools. So that business plan is kind of the lead dog that everything else is following along the sled line there. So yeah, if you tie it all together and you keep some part of it always in your sight. So each week we're looking at the quarterly goal, we get to the end of the quarter, we say, okay, what are quarterly goals for the next quarter? And how are those going to help us reach our annual goal? And and then from time to time, we're going to be looking at our annual goals and going, wow, we're going to beat that one. Let's nudge it up a little bit. Let's keep adjusting. So that's, the feedback part. So the first part is the actual making you think about it, what you plan. And the other part is the feedback loop that it really allows you to have.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. We tell our clients all the time that because what we do in our day jobs is, we're wealth managers at our core, but we specifically work with private business owners. But we always tell our clients, look, the value does not come in this deliverable that we give you for your financial plan. The value comes in the process of actually doing planning. And by the time that we get to the end of the kind of initial process, there shouldn't be anything that we're talking about that jumps out at us, that surprises us, that we already haven't talked in significant detail about, right? So I totally agree with you 100% that a lot of value actually comes in that process of just getting things out of your head, wrapping your arms around them and putting them on paper so that you can actually visually look down at them, hopefully more regularly, and just measure and track your progress as you move forward.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. So the planning, just like in what you're doing, with investments, retirement planning, exit planning, just for the business itself, that plan's the first piece, which then leads to how do we organize? How are we going to follow up on this? What do our weekly meetings look like? And then that further drives, to, okay, we've made decisions. Now those one-on-ones allow us to execute there. I mean, you've got supervisors that hopefully you're growing, you're bringing on new supervisors, unless they've come from someplace that already has really had a thorough training on management. A lot of times they're just being promoted up and they don't have that training. So this tool, is a way to show them, here's a structured way to have your one-on-one meetings, to relate to people, to follow up. Here's how to manage your team. And then we can track, just like with the business plan, we've got to have feedback. So now, are your supervisors doing the one-on-ones? Can't tell you how many times I've asked supervisors or even higher level managers, how are those one-on-ones going? Oh, great. And then later you check in with one of their team members and well, how do you like the one-on-ones with so-and-so? What? What one-on-whats? And
they say we had one. Is that a one-on-one? That was a year ago though.
Exactly. So yeah, and having with the software tool, all these tool pieces are tied together, and it's not like a link in a spreadsheet that gets busted or whatever, but it's all very easily tied together. And so that's one of the powers of the software. Fundamentally, what the software is really doing is helping us build habits at all levels of the organization. And, it sounds like a Stephen Covey commercial or something at some point, but, good habits drive good results.
Yep. Well, a perfect segue, Karl. We'll take a quick break for a commercial, and we'll just hear a quick word from our sponsors, and then we'll jump right back into it.
Hey there, Tycoons. Austin Peterson here, co-host of Tycoons of Small Biz. If you think you have what it takes to be considered a tycoon and you're wondering how you could become a featured guest, please follow and then message us at Tycoons of Small Biz on LinkedIn. We'd love to have a conversation with you to see if it is a mutually good fit, and if so, we'll get you scheduled for an interview. If you're unsure about being a guest on our podcast, but are contemplating selling your business over the next few years and you'd like to know what your business is worth, please also follow us and then message us on LinkedIn for your no obligation, informal valuation of your business. We look forward to hearing from you, and thanks for listening to the Tycoons of Small Biz podcast. And now, back to today's program.
All right, Tycoons, we're back at it with Karl Maier. All right, Karl. So I think we've got a pretty clear understanding of what the software is and what it does. So help us draw a comparison between Abunden and are you familiar with EOS?
Sure.
Yeah. So help us draw a comparison between the two and maybe how they're similar, how they're different. I think I've got this idea in my mind how they are, but I'd like to just hear it in your words.
Right. Yes, EOS has got a good system. EOS tends to be a very consultant-driven system. The EOS implementers, they get their franchise from the EOS corporate, and they come in and they're selling consulting services, and that's fantastic. That's a great fit for some companies. They come in for a couple days and do a lot of planning and then come see you every quarter. And if you've got a organization, that's got the budget and it's got the infrastructure to be able to deal with that, to execute, between, each quarter to quarter guidance from your, those big one-day sessions, that's fantastic. That could be a really good fit for you. But what I find is there's a whole lot of companies that just aren't at that level. Maybe they don't have the budget. Maybe they, don't have as many resources internally to be able to execute, just build those habits, if you will. I worked with a company that, it was really, the management team was pretty much, the owner and his wife. And they had 40 people, 35, 40 people, and they were kind of running everything themselves. And, the way the business was, the industry and the so forth, they didn't have a huge budget to spend on consulting. So for them, it was much more cost effective to get a little bit of support in implementation, some guidance, on more like, short, visit, an hour here, an hour there, and not having to wait a whole quarter. And having the software tools help them develop those habits. So that's one difference. The other difference is also a little bit of scope. A lot of respect for the EOS system. No, don't want to say anything negative about it. Abunden just believes that there's some other things that need to be added to the, what EOS or some other systems out there do. And in particular, I think the biggest one is the one-on-one system. Having one-on-one meetings, to me, I see this all over the corporate world, but I don't see it nearly enough in the smaller business world. Think of the relationship you've got with your wife, your kids. if you don't talk to your wife or kids or husband or spouse or significant other for, weeks, if you just, hi, how are you? Hi, and that's your only communication with them for weeks, what kind of relationship do you really have? So having a relationship with your employees obviously is different than a family relationship, generally speaking, but having some kind of relationship to build trust, you need to have, they have to understand, your employee has to understand that you'll listen to them in order for there to be trust. And you need that trust for them to communicate to you when there's challenges, when there's problems. So many owners I hear say that, employee just doesn't think like an owner. You have to wonder what the relationship is. You have to keep in mind that you have the ability to completely end their cash flow that supports their ability to live in a house and feed their family. And you can do that extremely quickly with, one slip up by the employee, they risk some serious negative consequences. So for them to bring bad news to you really is a big deal. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of going on a little bit into the detail of one-on-ones. I also think deeper process tools and learning management tools also separate the Abunden system from some of the other platforms out there like EOS.
Yep. I agree 100%. Yeah, and I will echo the comments that you made. I think EOS is a phenomenal service, a fundamental, process or a fundamental way of running a business with a management team. So yeah, I'm a big believer in EOS, but yes, it's definitely great for the right company. And so that being said, you kind of have this niche, right, for the companies that you kind of work with. So talk to us about, what's an ideal situation look like for you, maybe from a number of employees standpoint, a revenue standpoint, single owner, multiple owner. Kind of talk to us about what typically looks like a great relationship for you.
Some companies come in with, there's a few different kind of problems, I guess, that really come up. One company that we've worked with, they had 4 owners, and they'd actually been friends before they started the company together. But as they started the company, things were going fine. But as they grew it, they really didn't have a mechanism to communicate between themselves and make decisions effectively. And over time, that really eventually became a problem. There was arguing and so forth. By bringing in the Abunden tools, particularly in this case, the structured management meetings, it really helped them to see, okay, this is how we identify issues, this is how we discuss issues, and this is how we follow up on those issues. And so that really was a big thing for them. So that company, I guess they were 20-some people at that point. So the complexity of the company, if you've got a handful full of people, 3, 4, 5 people, I mean, you just sit around a table, you look at everybody and you work everything out. The number of connections are not that great. When you're at 25 people, that you need a really big table, and it's just not going to happen. Your meetings would be incredibly long if you're trying to do it the same way. So it's the level of complexity. And for some companies, if they're growing pretty quickly, it's 7 or 8 or 9 people, they may start to feel that complexity and see that, wow, if I'm adding more people as quickly as I need to add people, this is going to be a big problem. On the other hand, the couple that came to us with 40 people, they had struggled on for like 15 years and finally just said, we've fought and worked hard and done everything we could, but we just can't get it above this point without some help. And so that was kind of the trigger for them. That was where they recognized, we need to do something differently. So it's sometimes just the frustration of, I feel overwhelmed and overworked. And, and that can happen at a fairly small size, but it also, so 5 to 50 people, it probably sometimes a little bit bigger, but most of the time 10 to 50 people, sometimes in that range is the size range that usually happens. And the key problems tend to be either arguing among the ownership or management team, the frustration with all these people problems and just feeling overwhelmed, or in some cases it's just, I can't grow anymore. I've hit the ceiling. I had two people, their partners, their company had been flat revenues for 3 years in a row and they just couldn't figure it out. And, it took a while, but I guess it took 6 months to make some changes, but then over the next 18 months, they doubled their sales. So those are, some of the situations. Does that give you a flavor?
Yeah, that's great. I would even go out on a limb here a bit, and maybe you agree or disagree with this. I'd like to hear your thoughts. I would go out on a limb here and say, Karl, that even for somebody that maybe is 1 to 2 years into business, maybe they're a solopreneur, or maybe they've got a really small team like us, that they would get extreme value from this. And I'll tell you my reasoning behind saying that is that if you're doing a business plan every year and you have a vision to rapidly grow your company, over the course of, let's say, the next 3 to 10 years, but maybe right now you're really small or brand new, but you're starting to get some traction. I think this kind of a system, this kind of software would be extremely valuable because it allows you to be proactive in your approach to growing, as opposed to getting to that point where you are burnt out, you're overwhelmed, you don't know what to do, you've hit this ceiling, you're frustrated. So this might be an opportunity for people to proactively start to get into these habits, to be thinking about their business more like a business, right, than more of a job or a hobby or something like that. But that was just something that kind of jumped out at me for people that really want to be proactive and get these important things in place before they get to this much larger revenue, much more larger employee based situations.
Right. That's a really good observation, Landon. The faster you're going to grow, the bigger your plans, the more important building this infrastructure early is. You picture the rocket going up in the sky, just a little bit off at the early stage is going to send you way off further down the line. And, so if you're a tech company with big plans, or you're just a service company or manufacturer that, hey, we've got a great idea and we think we can grow this thing, the sooner you develop those good habits, and even better, if we've got the software to help train the new people we bring on in those habits, it's a really small investment that can pay off big.
Yeah, agreed, 100%. So speaking of the investment that clients have to make to take advantage of your software, I was looking at, and it looks like you guys have 3 different pricing modules. Can you just kind of talk to us about those real quick?
Right. And we're right about at year end. So January 1 of 2022, we're going to expand the options a little bit. But right now on our website, the most basic level is a plan that allows you to have your management team. So that would be like your CEO, your head of accounting, operations and sales, maybe a business advisor, one or two others, they're all included in that, and full access to the full suite of tools for $119 a month. So incredibly affordable. And on top of that, we also are rolling out some packages that provide support, training, setup to help you quickly get up to speed on these systems. In addition, we do have our Abunden training course that's out there as well. And so that's actually a free course, so you can access that. And we also have a free assessment that helps people decide, kind of shows them this is what the points in your current organization where you could scale up more quickly. And so we do that assessment with one of our team members with companies that are interested. But then the second tier of the software itself is if you want to move beyond that 7 people, you are able to go up to a license that would allow your whole team, up to 50 people, access the procedures, the training modules, view access to your business plan, typically view access to your org chart. Your supervisors can use the one-on-one tools, and that's $357 a month. Again, for a team that size, for that full suite of products, extremely affordable. So,
yeah, undoubtedly. Yeah, when you look at something like an EOS, I've met with an implementer, phenomenal lady out of Las Vegas. EOS is that's a $50,000 investment over the course of 18 or 24 months. So this is significantly more affordable, and I think any small business shouldn't look at something like this as a cost, right? It is truly an investment in the longevity and the growth of your business. And you made a comment earlier, and you said the business owner said, "Oh, well, they just don't think like an owner." And it's like, well, have you ever coached or taught them how to think like an owner? No, you probably haven't. Well, this is a great solution to getting your employees to be thinking like an owner.
Right. Yes. Do they, understand your mission? Do they understand your values? I mean, values are how we as humans make decisions. If we only looked at the, bottom line financial statement impact, we'd never hold a door open for anybody. We'd never pick up a piece of trash. We'd never let anybody cut in line in front of us. And we do. So that ties back to your values. So by doing that business plan, thinking about your values, communicating it to your team, using it in your assessments, you can really transform some results really quickly just with those few things. So.
I agree 100%. All right. So Karl, we're kind of pushing up against time here, but I want to ask you, what's your long-term vision for Abunden?
We really are thrilled to see companies continue to grow. In my mind, that's a really important part, not just of the US or world economy, but that also impacts human beings. It's people's stress, both as a business owner or business employee. And so, we really want to have as many people as possible get the benefit of these type of tools. And that's why the course is free. So you can, go watch the course and learn all about it and exactly what the tools do for free. So we really believe that, that's kind of our mission, is helping people grow their companies and run successful companies for the benefit of everybody involved.
Yeah, phenomenal. Well, like I said, I was poking around on the website. I saw you guys offer a free trial, I believe. I think it said 14 days. You've got the free course to educate, people on all these different components of your process. So I would highly encourage anybody that is listening, to go out and take the free course. I think it said it was about 1 to 2 hours worth of videos, if I remember correctly. I'm going to do it 100%, and I think I'm also going to sign up for the free trial and check it out, because we're talking to our business owner clients about this kind of stuff, all the time. And the reality is in my experience, Karl, and between Austin and I, we serve a lot of very successful small business owners, but in my experience, very, very few business owners have access and regularly track and measure this stuff that you guys help people do. So,
Well, we are really excited about the opportunity to help people that want to improve their company. I know there's a lot of them out there, and so we'll be happy to do what we can to be helpful.
yeah, absolutely. All right, Karl, what's the best way for people to either track you down as an individual, to have a conversation with you, or how do they track down Abunden online?
The Abunden website is an excellent resource at www.abunden.com, and the course is available at abunden.co. You can find Abunden on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. My LinkedIn profile is available online. If you search for Karl Maier and Abunden, I think you'll find me pretty quickly. So we'd love to hear from you, and follow us on your favorite social media.
Fantastic. Well, Karl, really, really enjoyed the conversation. We love what you're doing. We look forward to following your continued success. And I would say December, I think, is a great time to be having this discussion as people are thinking about their strategic planning, their business planning, their vision, their goals. So anybody that's listening, go check out abunden.com, check out what they're offering. I think it's a really great service at an extremely affordable price. So Karl, thank you for sharing all this with us today, and we look forward to connecting with you again sometime real soon.
Thanks, Landon.
You're welcome.
You've been listening to Tycoons of Small Biz, proudly hosted by Austin Peterson and Landon Mance. Austin and Landon are comprehensive financial planning professionals specializing in financial, estate, and succession planning for small business owners. Austin and Landon have offices in Scottsdale, Arizona, and Las Vegas, Nevada, and represent clients in 14 states throughout the country. Join Austin, Landon, and the featured Tycoons live every Tuesday at 1 p.m. right here on Business Radio X and your favorite podcast platform.